Hi guys, what's up? This is going to be my review for the album Meditate 2 by Irgalom. I hope I'm saying that right. Anyways, what can I say about this band? Well, they're a black metal band, and they have more of a rhythmic or melodic sound to their music than some other black metal music out there. They typically draw from the Psalms, it seems like, a whole lot. I think the actual playing of the instruments is complex enough. It's not the most complex stuff ever written, but it is somewhat complex, so I want to emphasize that there. Now, the guitar playing seems to be more rhythm based, and so in this way, it's hard to really tell if I want to judge them based on um, backbeat or rhythm. The rhythm is usually what I use to judge things that are more complex in terms of what is going on in the beat in the music. If it's kind of a steady doot, 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 or if it's something that you find yourself doing this to, then it's usually something that I'm gonna give a rating for the backbeat. Not to say that you can't rock your head out to stuff that's rhythmic, but generally, the way I view it is if it's something that gets you in a groove of repeating the same thing over and over and you're just kind of going along with it, then it typically is something that's more of a backbeat type of thing rather than a rhythm type of thing. So with a rhythm, I typically view it as they do a series of things and then they repeat that, or they do a series of things and then they move on to the next thing, and so it's really hard to tell sometimes between the two which one that they're doing. As far as the playing is concerned, the playing is pretty good. These guys have talent. They are not just scrubs playing on musical instruments. They have some talent there. And as far as talent is concerned, they really piece it together well with what it sounds like, how the sonic sounding guitars sound, how the bass goes along with the guitars, how the drum beat goes. I will say that some of the drum beats in this are very interesting, and as with a lot of black metal bands, the drummer is oftentimes a focal point. But I want to say, the melodies that you hear in this music are pleasing to the ear. They generally have a set sort of rhythm in them, and then they change it up a little bit throughout the song. Pretty standard for black metal. But rather than being this sonically hard to listen to, meaning that there's disturbance or there's different sonic weird things going on in it, like static or that type of thing. There's none of that really in this album. This is mostly a straightforward. It reminds me a little bit of Skald and Vium's older release, Stridwiston. So it reminds me a little bit of that album, and it's been one of the only black metal albums that has really reminded me of that album. And I would say this is the case because just the way they string along things, the way it sounds sonically to the ear in terms of the guitar playing, it has these sort of melodies that come in and out, and it just sort of sounds something sort of off a more basic black metal genre rather than a offshoot of the genre of black metal. Now, I want to say for the lyrics, they're very strongly pulling from the Psalms, it seems like. There's a song that's called More Than Gold, probably my favorite song off the album. It has a very cool sound to it, but it also is, the lyrics are inspired, and by that I mean they they seem like they come straight out of the Book of Psalms. It seems like they could write this word for word, what's in the Psalms. Now, that might be a message to some people that might think, well, this is black metal that you're listening to, and black metal isn't really a good thing because of how dark it is. Well, the thing I would point out there is that there is a difference here between, especially the lyrical content, between a Christian black metal artist and a non-Christian black metal artist. Now, a non-Christian black metal artist is probably singing about Satan, whereas it's the exact opposite with Christian metal artists. Christian black metal artists are singing about God. They're singing about Jesus. They're singing about redemptive things, and sometimes they might get into the things of destroy Satan, that sort of thing. They might get into that as well. But there's a lot of it is, especially this album, is more of an uplifting sort of album that when I listen to it, I feel encouraged. And that's one of the takeaways that I think is so cool from this album is when I started to dive into the lyrics a little bit more, I started to think, wow, this is really encouraging music. Not only sonically, but also the lyrics. As I was reading along in the lyrics, as you guys probably know by now, when I do a review, I have to know the lyrics. That's a requirement for me. If I don't know the lyrics, then good luck getting a review for me because I'm not going to do it. So, yeah, the lyrics seem to be very uplifting. They seem to be very supportive to the Christian in their walk of faith. Alright, so getting on into the categories, let's see what we can do there. So like I said before, the rhythm and backbeat is kind of hard to decipher. I would say it kind of plays in this in-between state a lot of the time. And if I was going to do Skloden VM's release Stridwisten, I might say that they're a little bit in the same vein as that. However, I would say they're probably more rhythmic based. But these guys seem to be a little bit more in the backbeat area of things. They do a fairly good job of this. Some of the tracks are really headbangers and fun to listen to that way. I want to say probably give them a 1.7 or so for that. Moving on into the notes. Now the notes seem to be what I find myself listening to a lot more lately, which is a kind of playing that isn't necessarily scale work, but seems to be a series of notes playing repeated over and over. And there's nothing bad about this. This can be done in good ways and this can be done in bad ways. I think this band does it in a fairly good way. There's some parts of the notes that are quite complex, but in other parts that they almost seem too simple. And so I'm not really sure how to rate this. I'm not going to give it a bad rating because, like I say, with the backbeat or with the rhythm, it tends to be, fairly listenable. And so from that regard, I'd probably give it a 1.6, I guess I would say. Now, as far as rich and complex, this is a category that I find that a lot of bands have difficulty with. Maybe it's just because I have exposed myself to so much music over time, and I've spent so much time sort of analyzing music that in some respects, the complexity that might be there might be there for someone else, but it's not there for me. It's not to the level that I would usually want to give a perfect score to. So in that regard, they do have some parts, like I said, they do have some parts in this where the guitar work is quite complex. They have some parts where the drum work is quite complex. Hard to hear what's going on with the drums. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention is there's clean vocals in this album, and that sounds great. So as far as rich and complex and comparing that to the composition, it is in light of the composition, it is actually fairly good. I will say that. The thing is that it seems downplayed a lot of the aggressiveness of the album. Seems to be, because of the way it was produced, it seems to be not really in your face in terms of how they produce this album. So in that regard, it doesn't, the complexities don't exactly pop out at you like they might if they had a more raw production level. Now, I will say that the production level in this album is quite good, very polished, so keep that in mind as well. So for an overall rating for the complexities, a rich and complex, it is rich, it is quite rich. Complex, like I said, it's really complex in some parts and not so complex in other parts. Of course, that is me saying that I don't know how to actually play what they're playing on the guitar, so I don't know exactly what kind of how complicated these riffs are that they're doing or these notes that they're playing. So aside from that, I want to say probably a 1.6, I would say. Now, as far as the composition is concerned and measuring this up to the listenability of it, this is quite good. I don't have really a whole lot of complaints about this. It sounds pretty good. The composition seems like everything follows in a natural order, especially when you read along in the lyrics. Seems to sound great. And especially that it's based on these psalms that are in the Bible. That's another way that you can see it play out as the composition is concerned, that they base it around the way they can sing the psalms. So in that regard, I think they did a great job of putting that together. I'm going to give them a 1.8 on that. And finally, on the listenability, this is a really listenable album. I want to say it doesn't sound scary. It doesn't sound like something, about, it doesn't sound like a guy screaming in a cave in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't sound like, it sounds pleasing to the ears. And it sounds like music that a lot of people could appreciate. Now, granted, there's dirty vocals, but if you can get past that, then it would be an album that I would think tons of people could appreciate. So as far as listenability is concerned, I'm going to give that a 1.9. So overall, that's going to give it a very strong 8.6. Like I said, guys, before, I've kind of switched the way I do these reviews, so you're not going to be seeing all these 9.3s anymore. You're not going to be seeing all these 9s anymore. It's going to be mostly, I'm going to be more strict on how I rate things. Because I want, the reason I do this is because I really want the good stuff, the stuff that's like really superb, to really shine. So that's the reason I'm doing that. Well, guys, that's going to be it for this review. Until next time. Okay, guys, last way I want to say, I got this t-shirt at Vision of God Records. It says Christian Metal Underground in it, which is a subdivision of Vision of God Records. And I highly suggest you picking up one of these. It was only $7, and it's by Next Level Apparel, which is a really good t-shirt company. It's a great fit. It's a really comfortable feel in terms of what it feels like. Recommend picking up one of those.